Hello and welcome to the Wisconsin Drunken History Podcast. We are your hosts, Eric Sturgeon.
And I'm Russell Sorry.
This podcast is about all things Wisconsin, history, music, and culture.
While drinking a few brews.
Though we don't often use strong language, the jokes and the content is not intended for young audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Before we begin the episode, we have to give a huge shout out to the Dangets from Madison, Wisconsin, for providing us with great bluegrass intro you hear at the beginning of every episode. The song Razzle was written by Jamie Lampkins, but is performed on behalf of Tom Wasselchuk and the Dangets. If you have a chance, check these guys out at dang-its.com for upcoming shows, music, or on how to book them for weddings, parties, and etc. Thank you for listening.
All right. Welcome to episode 6 of Wisconsin Drunken History. My name is Eric.
I'm Russ.
So today we have a pretty entertaining episode for you. I don't know if any of you have been to a Bucks game or Brewers game recently, but they try to get the players who aren't from here to pronounce some of our city names. And as you know, some of them can be a bit tricky, but it's entertaining nonetheless to hear an outsider try to make sense of all of the vowels and consonants that we throw into these things.
Yeah, and actually some of us pronounce them incorrectly, so we're going to try to clarify it in the episode.
Exactly, yeah. As Russ said, that's one thing that we have noticed over the course of this research. We're not even saying some of these correctly. We're saying them alike, but we're not saying them properly. So this is pretty interesting for sure. Just want to also say thanks to all of the listeners to our show. Obviously, numbers are growing, views are intensifying. This is awesome. We're really happy, and we're really proud to really be able to do this for you guys. And keep subscribing and keep listening. That's all we can ask for. That's awesome. We also have continued to produce different merch that we will definitely be bringing out to all of you soon. The biggest thing that we wanted to just sort of discuss is that, any of the merch sold or anything like that, generally not for profit. It's just to help us be able to get from episode to episode, buy the beer that we review, but also then keep the servers online and produce better website and better content. And then also in the future, be able to travel and do remote interviews and remote shows as well.
Yeah, and some of you original listeners, we'd love to meet all of you. So once we get these kind of lined up, we want you guys to come out and come say hey. And we have beer koozies, pins. We'll probably have shirts at that point. So yeah, please stop out and come say hey.
Awesome. And then I think on the last episode, we had a few things that we wanted to clarify.
Yeah, so I made a few minor errors. Like, they wouldn't be anything you would notice. They're really small errors. On the Pabst episode, I said that Pabst had 4 children that survived. There was actually 5. And it was a minor slip-up, but I think it was due to the malty beverages we sip on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was one more on the Bubbler episode, and nobody would have caught this. Obviously, the episode makes sense, but I said 1988, around the time when Duran Duran was still on the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was actually 1888 when Beethoven was still on the radio. So just a minor slip-up, but yeah, without further ado, here's our episode.
Awesome. So today's episode is Wisconsin origin.
So the origin of Wisconsin's name is kind of a complicated story, and there's a couple theories, but I think one makes more sense over the other. The one theory posed that originally it came from the Algonquin language family. This language is spoken by tribes like the Menominee, the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, and the Mohican tribes. And actually the term Wisco meaning something good, and say meaning a good place to camp or live. But honestly, this next theory is probably the more plausible one. So the other interpretation, and the one currently on Wikipedia, I don't use Wikipedia obviously, but it is on there, is that it was from the Miami language. And I'm going to state the case why I think this one is correct. They speak a language that's similar to the Menominee tribes. The word originates from the word Muscusing, which translate to where the Red Rocks lie, referring to the Wisconsin Dells area. And if you haven't been there, the Red Rocks around that area are awesome.
It's absolutely beautiful and gorgeous to drive through there.
Yeah, and you can take those duck tours through there. Really cool. In 1673, French explorer Jacques Marquette had 2 Miami Indian guides as companions that led him through the area. explaining the Miami Indian reference, and referred and recorded it down as Miskusing. And to me, this seems a bit more plausible than the true origin story. Obviously, the Miami tribe is not really from here, but they were just the guides that were along with them.
Sure.
And a reason for all the confusion is when the French ended up messing up the language. So if many of you don't know, there are 3 language types in Europe. There's the Slavic, Germanic, and Latin languages. And obviously the Germanic is a little more harsh. French is a little more flamboyant. And you got the Slavic languages, obviously like Russian and Estonia.
Yeah.
And so the W from Wisconsin actually comes from Jean-Baptiste. And he's a really famous map maker of the time. And he actually went with these Indians and marked down all the locations. And it was one of the first maps that Wisconsin made. And so because these 2 guys are with them, obviously it's probably the more likely theory that that's how Wisconsin got its name. When he presented the map to Robert Cavalier, he interpreted the first 2 letters, me sound, as we, obviously the French word for yes, leading to them to pronounce the area as Wisconsin. And it actually became Wisconsin for about 150 years. And obviously the English came and settled in the area, and Germanic language is a lot more harsh. So when we say we, it's we, that's the pronunciation for the English language.
Right.
So obviously it became on July 4th of 1836, the English settlers kind of took over this area a little more. So it actually became officially known as Wisconsin on this date. And there's a lot of misinterpretations, obviously, and this is kind of how the state came together. It was formulated by Native American, French, and English influence, and it's kind of a interesting story, honestly.
Yeah, and honestly, what was probably the most interesting to me was that there's a whole nother theory to it. To me, the only one that I had ever heard of, and the one that I sort of subscribe to, is from Wayne's World. And the kind of explanation from what's his name?
Alice Cooper.
Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
So it just sort of it's sort of shocking and surprising that there's this whole other setup that nobody really has probably heard of unless you dig deep. But to me, it just made so much sense when in Wayne's World, Alice Cooper just explains it out to Wayne and Garth, what happened.
Yeah, and actually, like, it's kind of interesting how the Ojibwe, which is, based here in Wisconsin, kind of came up with their own theory of how it could have happened. But obviously, because the French map making, it's the more plausible theory that the French actually named Wisconsin. And then it became bastardized by the Germanic language of the English settlers.
Those bastards. If you can explain maybe a little bit, too, I know that there's an interesting story behind the Badger State and how we got that sort of nickname and how it began to be more popularized.
Yeah, so when you hear the term badger in Wisconsin, you think that we're full of badgers, which is absolutely not true. They're very rare in the state. I believe the DNR has spotted some in the past few years, but really they're very rare to find them. And actually the name comes from the southwestern part of the state. Around the 1800s, lead miners would dig little holes that miners started to dig, and then they would abandon, and they kind of speckled the land. And they were believed that the settlers actually lived in these holes, and they became known as badger miners. And it was kind of an interesting thing. Like, they thought it was derogatory, but really it's not. It's something they take very prideful, and it became like the symbol of the state. And there's actually no evidence of them living in the holes. Around the 1830s and 1840s, the name just kind of stuck, and it just became badger miners or badgers. Though not always a positive term, obviously, the miners and residents took it as a pride of heritage. The badger is also known for being tough, great diggers, which is the mining history of the state, obviously, resourceful and very hardy animals, and can adapt easily to its surroundings. Obviously, like the early settlers that settled here, I mean, the winters are harsh here. I mean, if anyone's been through an up north winter specifically, -60s, I mean, it's brutal.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, they had to be tough and be able to hold their own in just the elements alone.
Right, and so our next section is actually, we're not going to go into the history of these towns, but we wanted to explain how to actually pronounce the town names and just how they got that name.
Yeah, and so we will start with Muskego, which to many of you may not be familiar, but this is actually the home. Muskego is the home of Project Cape Studio, where we film and record a bunch of different studio projects.
So Muskego is actually derived from the Potawatomi tribe. They actually named the area Muskegoak, which means sunfish, obviously shortened to Muskego, but it's due to the 3 lakes surrounding the area. Obviously, I think you have, Big Muskego, Little Muskego, and Danoon?
Danoon is the other one, yep.
Yep, and it's actually was just because of the great fishing in the area. And so I don't want to butcher these names, and I actually had practiced these beforehand, and I have a informant that helped me pronounce these before I started the show. So I hope I don't butcher these.
Yeah, you have to sit in front of the mirror, right?
Yeah, definitely for these. I mean, some of them are pretty hard to pronounce.
Absolutely. So the other one is Beloit that we're going to talk about. One of the other ones, I should say. And what I want to just explain really quick is that I have a theory of how this happened. There was a man on the Rock River, and he made a poop from the bridge, and when the poop hit the water, it said, Beloit. Is that right?
Close.
Okay.
So actually, the town was originally to be called New Albany. And when you think of Beloit, obviously there's a lot of crime there, and it's always been voted the worst city in the state. But actually, it's not a bad place. The downtown's actually making a really great recovery. They're trying to clean up some of the drugs and crime, and obviously Beloit, because it's kind of the center between like Chicago, Rockford, Milwaukee, Madison, it became kind of the drug hub, which is really unfortunate because it's actually a very beautiful area, and the name Beloit actually means handsome ground.
Oh.
And our farm is located out in Beloit. For those of you that don't know, it's in between Beloit and Orfordville, kind of just on the town. We're actually the town of Beloit, not in Beloit. And I mean, if you're out there, it's very beautiful. I mean, there's prairies everywhere. The farmland is very luscious. It's just really unfortunate of some of the crime and stuff that does exist in this town.
Yeah.
And actually, if you want to know the truth, we don't really pronounce Beloit correctly. It's actually a French word, Belua, and it's similarly like Detroit, which is actually Detroit. And a lot of people don't know this. Obviously, we butcher it because we do the English pronunciation of it.
Absolutely.
So the next town we have is Waukesha. And originally it was called Town of Prairie Valley. In 1847, the town changed its name to Waukesha. Waukesha is another one of those that was butchered thanks to our Anglo-Saxon pronunciation. But the word actually derives from the Ojibwe word Wagoshag or the Potawatomi word Watsa. It was actually named after a local tribe leader who was described as being tall, athletic, proud in his bearing, dignified, and friendly. For most of its history, it was actually believed that it was an Algonquin word meaning fox or little foxes, which is actually incorrect.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, and the next one we have for you is Nashota. And a lot of people don't pronounce this one right. This is kind of one I've seen get messed up often.
Yeah, Nashota.
But it's actually pronounced Nashota, but actually comes from the Potawatomi word and is Nishota, which means two or twin rivers, due to the nearby waterways in the area. And it's just another case of a Germanic butchery of the Native American language. So we have one more, and this one's probably one of the harder ones. And we're going to have more episodes on this, especially there's some really crazy ones you probably are pronouncing wrong currently.
Yeah.
But this one is Ashwaubenon. And I've seen the Brewers mess this one up. I've seen Bucks players mess this one up. It's a tough one to pronounce.
This is one of the ones.
So this is another one with a few theories to the name. And the first one is from the Ojibwe origin, which derives from the word Ashiwabi winning, which means place where they watch or keep lookout. But the next theory comes from the Menominee language, which is related to the Ojibwe language and derives from Eswapanan, or meaning thither see the dawning. And the last theory for the town is from the Sioux tribes, where there was a chief named Ashwaubenon, which is another theory, and the land around Green Bay was actually purchased from the Sioux in the 1850s by the U.S. military. And a lot of people don't know that, but yeah, it's true. There's 3 different theories to that one. I think the more likely one is the Ashwaubenon tribe.
It seems like there's a little bit more, of an actual history behind it. It's not just a theory,
So basically, like to conclude the episode, all these town names are, a lot of them are Native American, but a lot of them are just because of English butchery that they sound the way that they do. But these are the true pronunciations of the town. And I hope you found it very informative. I hope you did too, Eric.
Yeah, I definitely learned quite a bit. So many of these, there's theories that go beyond just, I guess, the the broken down meaning of the names, that you can pinpoint, okay, here's, a Native American word within the city name that we can, trace back to like the other one, Fox or Little Foxes for Waukesha. That's just crazy to me that it may not have had anything to do with that whatsoever. And when you really broaden it out and you look at the whole word and being maybe mispronounced for, the last few hundred years, it's crazy that there's, so many more theories that exist for these.
And the languages are so complicated. I just listened to the Wisconsin project from WPR.
Yeah.
And they just did one on why do all the town names have "wa" in it?
Right.
And it's actually very complicated, and they really don't have an answer. I mean, there's so many different interpretations of "wa" that it's based on place by place.
Yeah. And I think with the rich history of many different tribes living in these areas, each one of them probably had their own language, or even just maybe a small dialect of the language. And it's probably almost impossible to narrow down exactly where certain things came from, when to one tribe it means something different, and then a whole nother one. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And they even had like professors who research this and people that actually speak the language.
Yeah.
And each one kind of had their own interpretation of, based on their language, what it meant.
That's crazy.
So,
all right. So thank you for listening to that interesting part of the story on how, the origins of different things here in the state. We move now to our music segment, where we break down a local band or local artist. We play their music, and we give you a little bit of insight into them as a band, what we feel about them, and then we leave open interpretation for you guys to make your own conclusions at home.
Yeah, so I know the drummer personally, Jake Ruffin. He's a pretty cool guy, man. He used to come over, kind of party with us once in a while. We'd kind of go out on the town. And I know he's always been kind of into music and drumming specifically. And he's actually a drummer for the band. And they do have a video out for the next song you're going to hear. And obviously it's a really great song because Midsummer just passed. And if you're Scandinavian heritage, I'm sure you know about Midsummer.
Yeah.
A really cool Midsummer party I went to actually was a pontoon boat where they stripped everything off and they stacked logs on it and dumped gasoline on it, kicked it out to the river. And actually there was somebody who shot a flaming arrow on it and lit it up. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. It was up north Wisconsin. It was beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I had been around at your house for at least one get together that we had, and Jake was there, and we had a chance to talk a little bit of music. We had a chance to listen to some wild stuff on your stereo, and then I showed him a few dance moves as well. So
the wild stuff on my stereo, that's about it. Dude.
Yeah, that's the thing. Wild stuff, man. So yeah, without further ado, here is Midsummer Wonder.
On the wall, remember last fall. ever think about me? Does a part of you still care? I hope you see my pictures and wish you were here. Does a part of you wonder? Does a part of you wonder? Can you tell me that it does, so I can feel better? Does a part of you wonder? Does a part of you wonder? Can you tell me that it does, so I can feel better?
All right. That was Midsummer Wonder. And now for our next segment. How many locos you at?
Yeah, today's episode comes from us from Janesville, Rock County area. And this one is a man who wanted to buy more beer, but his BAC was 4 times the legal limit. A Janesville man arrested for drunken driving after coming out of a convenience store was at the store buying more beer. Had a blood alcohol concentration more than 4 times the legal limit. Man, 42, was taken into custody about 8:30 p.m. Tuesday at Jake's Mobile gas station in Janesville. Man refused to take a field sobriety test at the gas station, so he was taken into custody. Preliminary breath test showed he had a blood alcohol concentration of 0.34.
Dude should be on the floor right now.
Yeah, I mean, he should be. This is like complete maximum. The deputy at the gas station was on a traffic complaint when he saw the man stumbling out of the convenience store. The man attempted to walk over to his vehicle that was running in the parking lot when the deputy made contact with him. He admitted to driving to the gas station to purchase more beer and also admitted he was intoxicated.
Yeah, I think we can see that, dude. You tripped over an invisible thing coming out of a convenience store and an officer across the street saw you.
Yeah, I mean, when you come out of a convenience store looking like those old school movie Irish drunks that are just like, falling
Just
over on the
completely
street.
overplaying
yeah,
it. Oh, my God.
So, I mean, with that, how many locos do you think this guy was at? I mean, a 0.34, and let's say he was sucking down some lokes. I mean,
I'm telling you right now. So if this was loco that got him to this point, he would have been on the floor. And if not, this man is a Greek god. But my best guess here is with 0.34, he minimum had to have had 4 loco cans. So he's at a 16 loco.
oh,
100% has to be.
yeah, I mean, a 0.34, and considering the alcohol percentage in there, I would guess a 0.34 would be about a 12 or 16 loco. So either 3 or 4 cans of loco, which is a bad night for anyone.
So 4 loco, for anybody listening that doesn't know or isn't aware of what this absolutely god-awful concoction is, it is a witch's brew of basically Red Bull Monster-esque things with malt liquor. This is a machine that was built to carry you right to hell.
It's supposed to keep you out for parties, but hell's close enough.
Dude, Easily there's like a small amount of cocaine mixed into every single can that keeps you somehow upright, even though you have consumed enough liquor to drop an elephant.
Right. And do you remember, I think in early 2000s or what, like when we were graduating, they banned it for the longest
Yeah, it was
time.
right around like 2007, I think.
And they banned that sucker, and it was gone for a long time, and then they re-released it.
I think they had like a new recipe or something. They took one of the ingredients out, or a few of them, or something. They probably just took the cocaine out, and now it's just this Monster Energy / just liquid malt beverage. It's still its main objection is to knock you out cold,
Right.
but keep the shell of you alive to still do stupid stuff like this guy.
Yeah, like you can go to a party, but if you try making love to a woman, that penis
No.
isn't working, man.
Nope.
That thing's limper and shit.
Done.
Yeah, you're not getting any, dude.
And now for today's beer review segment. Today's beer comes to us from Haus. This is the Hidden Stash IPA. Just a really brief overview of this bad boy. This stash is hidden right in plain sight. This IPA is made with select nuggets of mosaic hops, which obviously gives you that burst of juicy, kind of sticky, hoppy goodness. It's full of flavor. I absolutely love this thing right off the bat. It is phenomenal tasting, and it's not subtle, which is absolutely the way I like it.
Yeah, and the IPAs normally have like that dehydrating. This one's more of a juicier hop. It's pretty tasty. And for those of you who haven't actually been to Haus, it's in Verona, Wisconsin. They used to be in a smaller building, but actually they're getting a new building constructed right now, and the brewery looks awesome. If you go on their Facebook page, check it out. It looks like a really cool place to go and visit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, although the market is absolutely saturated with IPAs, but just because the can or bottle says IPA doesn't mean it's great. So the thing to keep in mind is, when we review these, we're trying to give you a picture of exactly what you're getting here. And this one sits right with all of the really great top tier IPAs. It's like we said, it's not subtle. It is 100% going to give you hop forward taste. It's not a double. It's not going to crush you. Like you said, it's not going to be that overly dehydrating, but it's not subtle. You're going to get that hoppy taste. It's going to be very forward. You're going to get the bitterness. So you have to appreciate the beer in order to drink this. Any IPA that goes for. But this, definitely awesome.
Yeah, I recommend checking it out. Grab it from your local liquor store.
Yeah, again, it was Haus Hidden Stash IPA. And now for our local business shout out. Today's local business that we're featuring is Hansen Screen Printing. If you listen to my other podcast, Project Cape podcast, filmed and recorded right here at this same studio, I've talked a lot about Nate's business. Hansen Screen Printing is phenomenal, and Nate himself is just one of the best at customer service. He's so detail-oriented, and he's got an eye for everything design. So I encourage you, if you need anything, add specialty, screen-printed apparel or T-shirts or anything like that, definitely give this guy a call or go to their website. They specialize in printed apparel, screen-printed apparel, and graphic design services, but they also design and do custom vinyl graphics and other ad specialty stuff. So I would go to his website, but also if you have time, if you give him a call, he has a phenomenal shop where he can show you all the different T-shirt options, different color options. This is an absolute just a great business. I encourage everybody. This will be unlike any other experience you've had trying to get, custom things printed. If you're a team and you need a jersey or you need, swag for like the people in the stands and stuff, definitely do it. This guy is awesome, and it'll be like he's a part of that team from then forth. He is an absolutely awesome, genuine character.
Yeah, I knew Nate from school. He was a cool guy. I mean, he always played music, and me and you were both in the music. I mean, that's all we would talk about was playing music. And Nate was kind of a cool guy. We liked him, and
Yeah, he definitely from the moment that I met him and we talked about different television and video production stuff. He was like a few classes ahead of me in that with Mr. Adams. So, but it's a select few. You got to remember for broadcast journalism for television video production, they only select 16 students that apply to be a part of that class. So, he and I are a part of this sort of small, close knit group that knows, about the culture of this class, and we got to experience such a unique thing in high school, and so meeting him and knowing him through all of that was absolutely phenomenal, and he's just a genuine character. And then, like you said, the music stuff, he was a phenomenal bass player. I think he was in the band Caesarian with Tim Weber and a couple other guys, but it just rock and roll, man. Awesome.
yeah.
Definitely check it out. That's Hansen Screen Printing. All right, we have with us actually as a special guest, Nate Hansen of Hansen Screen Printing. How's it going, Nate?
Not too bad. How are you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing pretty all right. Can't complain. It's a Sunday and we're drinking some brews, man.
Yep, same here. Just got back from Devil's Lake. It was crowded with fibs.
There you go. See, that's the thing. Got to keep those people out of here. But I'm glad that you were up there doing the Wisconsin thing, supporting the state parks.
Yeah, my wife actually, we had these park and overflow parking, and she's a little irritated. And she said, they should just have Illinois parking in the overflow, and Wisconsin gets like first pick of parking.
I like that. That should actually be a thing. That's what like what we do with the Cubs and Brewers games now, where if you want to go to a Brewers game in Milwaukee, you actually get first dibs if you live in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, we take advantage of that wholeheartedly.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, the less Cubs fans in the stadium, the better. The past 4 or 5 years, it got pretty bad.
Oh yeah, disgusting, absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
All right, so now at your shop, explain to me a little bit about what you offer. I mean, I've been there before. I toured it with you. You were kind enough to show me a little bit about it, but tell our listeners what exactly you offer and everything about Hansen Screen Printing.
Sure. Yeah. So I specialize in screen printing, apparel, embroidery, vinyl graphics, banners, signs, and specialty items, you name it. So, any sort of bumper stickers or just anything, pretty much anything you see that you want your logo on, and we can do it. Yeah,
and I know you have a lot of different items that people can take a look at right in your shop, so that way they can get a better idea of the quality of the T-shirts that are available, and you kind of give them the option to manage their own T-shirt almost.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard I get emails from people saying, I want 7 shirts or I want 45 shirts, and I'm like, okay, well, you could break it down from a stiff cardboard style T-shirt that when you wash it once, it's gonna get wide at the bottom and shrink up like a crop top, or you can go with a little more higher end shirt that's gonna last and you're actually gonna wear. I guess my biggest thing is I want my clients and customers to make sure that the items that they're picking out are going to be their next favorite shirt, and every time they hand that shirt out to somebody, it's going to be their favorite shirt. So I want that spiral effect, and I want people to know that that what they pick out, it's customizable. So we can start at the bottom, or we can go all the way up to something really, really nice, but it's all up to them.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing, because I think a lot of T-shirts that I've had in the past, whether it's shirts that we've ordered for like softball or something like that, they've all turned out just, really kind of mediocre quality, and it's kind of let me down, and I have to wear this thing over and over. And I think that it's a reflection on you as the team as well, or, the business, if that's what it's for, that at least you give them all that information up front and say, here's what you can do, and it's your selection. So you run wild. Let it be your decision.
All right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it can be overwhelming at first if you don't really know what you're looking for. You don't really understand, the apparel industry. But once you come in and we kind of have a consultation and I can kind of pick your brain as to what you're looking for, then we can kind of steer ourselves in the right direction. I just I don't want these shirts to turn into after 2 weeks, because that's essentially what the free hand me out shirts are at events, and they turn into just a rag that you cut up and you wipe up whatever, a spilled beer or anything.
Yep. Well, and I know you helped me create the banner that we hang down in the studio as well. In the logo itself, I mean, was pretty much all you. So yeah. I mean, you have a not only the product, but you have kind of that artistic ability as well to create the logo.
Right. Yeah. No. There's a lot of design stuff too. I mean, and yeah, it's a process. It might take a little longer than just you sending me a logo of something that you want, but actually working together to create something that is just awesome and everything that you're looking for. That's where I feel some pride, and so it all kind of stems from high school, taking art classes, and I think you and I were in a couple of broadcast journalism classes together, and so just taking that creativity and working with the customer, it's huge, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And I know you were in some bands as well, so you obviously have to have a level of creativity and passion for your art in order to be in anything like that and play live. So.
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So we have a few questions for you to judge and base how Wisconsin you are. This is a little game we play. So let's go ahead and start off with, have you ever milked a cow?
Have I ever milked a cow? I'm sure on field trips I have. That'd be the only time I would.
Yeah.
I really, my family wasn't really into farming, or my extended family wasn't either. But I'd say yeah, I have.
Definitely. That's kind of the more common thing. If you've been on a field trip before, you've definitely experienced what the zoo is, the one that I can think of, where we would have milked a cow or seen it happen, or even at the fair maybe.
For sure.
Have you ever worn a flannel to work?
Yes, I actually I did masonry for 18 years. So a week out of high school, I was laying block and laying brick, and needed the health insurance, needed all that. So I was in the construction trades for a long time, and then I finally had the opportunity to get out of that and do something I was a little bit more passionate about. But yeah, there was definitely a flannel being worn on a daily basis.
Yeah, I would imagine you got to stay warm if you're outside laying block. That's insane.
Yep, you bet.
All right. Do you know what a cow chip is by chance?
I do. They're delicious.
I eat at least 2 or 3 every day.
They do have the candy.
No, I do. I believe in East Troy, town nearby where I live. I think they have a grid on one of the main drags.
Yeah.
It's not. I guess it wouldn't be a cow chip. It'd be. Maybe this is a different game, but this is where the cow chip might start. They have a cow walk around on a grid, and you draw a raffle ticket.
Yep.
And wherever the cow shits, you win that money.
Exactly. No, I know.
I know what a cow chip is, but this isn't it. But maybe then they let it dry for a long time, and then they can use that chip for a different game.
Yep, for a way different game.
So, but that's just I guess it's another Wisconsin game that is kind of weird. But
it's another fun one, right?
Yeah.
Do you know, or have you ever operated a snowblower?
I have.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I don't own one just because I'm like, I can shovel. I can keep doing this. I'm not old enough to own one. And every year goes by, and we get that dumping of a foot of snow, and I look at my wife, and she says, "Just go buy one."
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I think I'll be fine. And then about 4 hours later, when my shoulders are on fire, I start doing a little more research, and I never end up buying one, but I will eventually.
Wait, Nate. Eventually, going to start buying New Balance or the Nike Monarchs.
Oh, you betcha. Sure I am. I already got the white socks pulled up to my mid-calf. So.
He's got his socks pulled up to his nipples. All right. This one's important. Do you know what the Wisconsin state bird is?
Yes, I do.
Can you name it?
It's a robin.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Good.
Or the mosquito, as some people say.
Or the mosquito.
Mosquito, yeah, I've heard that too. I've seen some T-shirts on Etsy or whatever,
Yeah, we should definitely change the flag that we have.
Yeah, killer mosquitoes.
Yeah. All right. Have you ever been tailgating? Now I know as a fellow Brewer fan, I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah, I have. Sometimes I don't give myself enough time to, but I always pack it, or I stop and get a little 4-pack for my walk-in.
Yep.
But this year it's going to be a little different to tailgate. But I'm contemplating on just going to the stadium when they have games going on and tailgating. I don't know if it's going to be allowed, but
yeah, I actually wondered that myself because I know they're going to be doing a 60-game season, and I don't think fans are allowed at this point. But I wonder, what they're doing to regulate parking lot stuff.
Right, and also another thought I had is that right field there's that glass that you can kind of see.
Yep.
The field. I might figure out a way just to prop myself up there for a couple games and watch something. I miss it. I'm a little depressed without it. So yes, I love tailgating. My main goal was to tailgate for opening day, even though they didn't have it. But that just didn't work out with this COVID stuff, and it was raining, and I'm like, you know what, I can't go unless I'm going in. So
yeah, definitely. I definitely miss it too. I'm right there with you. Speaking of tailgating, do you eat brats, and do you do that with or without sauerkraut?
I do eat brats, and you know what, I eat pretty much anything tailgating.
Yeah, definitely.
Sauerkraut, it depends on the mood,
Yeah, it's definitely it's a game changer if you're into it. If you're not, then it's probably just a sour, tangy piece of stringy cabbage.
Yeah,
but
I'd say I'm 50-50 with the sauerkraut. It depends how long the jar's been sitting in the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
The longer the better.
And one final question before we let you loose here. Have you ever been to a Wisconsin Badgers football game and participated in Jump Around?
I have. I've got 3 daughters, and I've gone to regular season games, but I like to take them to the spring game.
Yeah.
To where it's just a practice game where they have a squad pretty much playing against each other, but they do the jump around, they do the 5th quarter. It's great for families. You don't have the drunk college kids around, and me being a little bit older, I'm kind of grown out of that phase a little bit. But yeah, been to some games, and I plan on going to more. So
awesome, yeah, and it is a different environment, like you said. It's a little bit more family friendly. So for anybody out there, the spring game is something to keep in mind if you're not really looking to see the adult sites.
Right, and kids get. Younger kids think they're at an actual game. They do a lot with the kids. They have stuff in the practice dome where kids can carry the axe if we have it that year, or try on helmets and gear. It's fun, and it's more of a family atmosphere, like I said. But
Awesome.
If you want to party, then you definitely need to go
Yeah,
against Michigan State, Ohio State, stuff like that. So
absolutely. All right, man. Well, thank you again for doing this with us. And if there's any last parting words you have for any of the listeners, go ahead and speak your piece.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you giving me a call and inviting me to this. I listen to it every week, so it's nice to be in the back printing and got some podcasts to listen to and actually learn some stuff that I didn't know, even though I've been born and raised in Wisconsin. But there's a lot of good information out there. But yeah, if anybody's looking for some apparel or wants some stuff done, just give me a shout, hansenscreenprinting.com, and we'll go from there. We'll figure out your next favorite t-shirt.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and I hope you have an awesome day.
Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, you too. Yep, take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, that concludes this episode of Wisconsin Drunken History Podcast.
If you enjoyed this vulgar display of Wisconsin, we recommend you subscribe via SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn.
Also, leave us a review on any one of those above-mentioned sites, and we can read one at the end of every show. Follow us on social media, and feel free to reach out, especially if there is a piece of history or weird news you'd love us to share or research, as well as highlight some local artists or music. Our website is projectcapestudio.com.
I'd also like to thank my friend and past coworker, Steph Skiback, for providing us with awesome podcast cover art, as well as the Dang It's for intro and outro music, and all of you for listening. As always,
Watch out for deer on the way home.